We're going to move to agenda item number 7, which is discuss and take action on the request for waiver of Tico Rule 217.1 minimum standards and enrollments, minimum standards for enrollment and initial licensure. Mr. Beecham.
Good morning, Commissioners. First, for your consideration on the waiver agenda this morning is a waiver submitted by Hutchinson County Sheriff's Office for Diana F. Asbury, submitted by Sheriff Coker for a Class A misdemeanor stealing charge from Missouri from 1997 for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff Coker, are you here? Would you come to the mic? Come to the podium, please. Is Ms. Asbury here too? You can come up as well. As Sheriff Coker's coming up, if you don't know where Hutchinson County is, he drove about 30 or 45 minutes longer than I did to get here. So. Sheriff, if you would take the mic, introduce yourself to the commission and explain why you'd like the waiver.
Thank you very much for your time and consideration. I'm Sheriff Kirk Coker, Hutchinson County Sheriff's Office. I took office in January of this year. Ms. Asbury was already employed at the Sheriff's Office. She was hired in October of 2016, and she was previously working as a jailer for the Gray County Sheriff's Office for almost 3 years. I asked for a full audit when I took office because we had some issues with our paperwork, and I wanted to make sure we were in compliance from day one. And Kenny Merchant found, and Ms. Asbury thought it had already been addressed and was over and everything else, and found that we had to apply for this. And initially I was reluctant to do this, but I've talked to her, a former sergeant and 4 current sergeants in our jail, along with the current jail administrator that I put in January, captain of our jail, and they've all been very pleased with her abilities, her handling of the inmates, her involvement in the community, and everything that we've been doing. So I decided to apply for a waiver to keep her on. She was unaware that she had anything hindering her, and as I stated, she had worked at Gray County Sheriff's Office for, she's been in this field now for right at 3 years total. Been with us since October, and I just felt like it would be unfair to take that away since she's doing so good and has been, and this happened in her, you know, I guess in the 90s. So I was asking that if y'all would graciously grant a waiver so that she can stay working for my agency.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the commissioners?
I'd like to hear from Ms. Asbury.
Okay, sure. Just introduce yourself and tell, here's what we want to hear. What happened? What happened that you got that conviction, and what have you done since?
I'm Diane Asbury. I'm Diane Asbury. I work for Hutchinson County. What happened was I just put a check through my account that I didn't know that didn't belong to them.
Say it again.
That's all I did for another person, and she ended up in jail. And I didn't even know anything was wrong until I entered Hutchinson County. When on there it asked you a question, have you ever been arrested for this? And I said no, and Mr. Copeland said that answer's a yes, and that's when I discovered that. But I didn't know that it was class. You know what class was? Nothing. Nobody said nothing to me, and I went to work and continued on.
Okay.
And now we're for Hutchinson.
Thank you, commissioners.
Ms. Asbury, it said that you did probation, and then there was a revocation of the probation?
I seen that too. You know, I worked at the school district over there from 6 in the morning until 1, and then from 3 to 11. I never knew that I was even on probation. When I saw that, I thought, what? I didn't.
Well, it showed on the report that we have that you were making payments on probation, so.
Well, you know, they told me I had to pay money, but I didn't know I ever had to see anybody, because that's when it said that, I thought, you know, because between those hours, I worked at the school district, both of those positions, you know. So when I saw that initial whole report, it was new to me. It was all new to me.
Were you represented by an attorney?
No.
So did you
No,
plead?
when I went, they just told me to pay the money back that went through my account, you know, because I'd already given it to her. And so that's what I did. I just did what they told me, and I continued working.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all new to me here recently. On that part, I did not.
Were you arrested for it?
They came to the school, told me he didn't handcuff me, didn't do anything. He just took me over there and told me, you know, you have to bond on this. And I'm like, okay. And then I went to court, and they said, did you do that? And through your account, I said yes. And I paid it back and moved on. I've never had any issues.
Okay.
I didn't know I was doing any wrong in the first place.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Ms. Asbury, so I want to go back to, I understand, I hear what you're saying, that you didn't feel that you did anything, but I want to go back to the specific thing with the check that got to where we are today, right? So what specifically happened in that?
There was a grocery store in town, and there was one of my neighbors in there, and she said that she didn't have an account, and would I cash it for her? I was stupid, young and stupid, I think. But I said, yeah, my bank's next door. And so we went and we deposited that, and I gave her the cash, and
What kind of
we
check
moved
did she
on.
give you?
Huh?
What did she give you?
I think it was a George's or something like that. It was from her chicken place. And she was there, and her boyfriend was there, and I was at the teller.
So you assumed it was a payroll check?
I
I'm not
assumed.
following.
I assumed, I assumed it was a payroll check, but I was just putting it in my bank and gave her the money, and then I ended up having to pay that back. If I'd have known I was doing wrong, I wouldn't have, you know, they were using me, I wouldn't have done wrong.
Okay, so I show in here that it was for $348 roughly.
I thought it was $329, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have never, I was raising 4 children by myself with 2 full-time jobs. I would not have put myself in a compromising position.
And then, so you went to work, when you came to work for the other sheriff's office, which one was that?
Gray County.
Gray County, so you'd been working there for a while, already had went through the jail academy, got your certification and license and everything.
Yes,
And then you came to work for the sheriff,
yes, sir.
and when he took office, he ordered the audit, and that's when this was found.
Yes, so in Gray County, none of that was found either for a couple of years on.
Okay. I guess okay, thank you.
Other questions?
So are we,
I have an additional question. So when you made application.
Your mic isn't on.
Okay, when you made application to Gray County, did you put on the application that you had been arrested or had been charged?
See, on any application I'd ever put, I didn't realize back at that time any implications on any of it. So on any application, I've always put no, because they didn't tell me what this is. I had not a clue, so I said no, and that's when the sheriff, Copeland, he said this question. He said, this is a lie, and I'm like, and then I didn't know what he was talking about, so he showed me. And then I said, okay, and then, of course, when I applied for Hutchinson, I answered that same question, is a yes then? Because I'd never known I had to put that.
Did you ever appear in
Can't read
courts?
some of
Pardon me?
this.
Did you ever appear in courts?
Yes, and all I was told then was to pay the check back. And from what I'm seeing on the paperwork that I ordered, I was on probation, but I was never on supervised probation. I just paid it back. Just like I said, I worked from 6 to 1 and then 3 to 11 at the same school district there for almost 3 years.
So
to
was
move
there
on.
ever any time where your probation was revoked, or there was a threat of revoking your probation?
Not that I was ever told, no. You see, and then
It's in here.
from there, I moved to Rogers and worked for that school district, was an hour away for 16 years as a supervisor.
May I?
You may.
Please understand, when I believe Miss Asbury is very nervous speaking to y'all. And I didn't quite understand, but she never knew that she was arrested. They took her up there and she said, yes, I'll pay it back. I didn't know I'd done anything wrong. She had no idea of none of this until after she went to work at Gray County, when she cleared it up with Sheriff Copeland. When she applied for us, I pulled her application because it was taken prior to me taking office, and she had answered, yes, I've been arrested, and this was the outcome, and thought it was all over. Until the recent audit that Agent Merchant done at our office, and said, no, this has to be addressed. And she had no idea of any of this. She said they took her in, said, you got to pay this back. She said, okay, and thought it was over. She had no idea that she was on probation or nothing. And I don't know how Missouri was doing it in the 90s. So I was kind of lost at that too. But when I contacted them, they said, oh, it was all handled. In everything I got, they said it was handled strange, and they didn't understand it either at Missouri. So I think she's just nervous trying to explain it to y'all standing up here.
I didn't know I was doing any wrong.
Okay, when I look at this, Sheriff, when I look at the paperwork, it looks like they waived everything. There was no jail time, and it says pay back the $348 on or before literally 3 months.
Yes, sir.
But they have in here for a probation of a year, and then once that's done, there's a discharge, and it's like it was I don't know if it was a rushed thing.
Like it disappeared.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of strike-throughs and how they did on this paperwork from the court. So when I first read it, I was a little confused and concerned, probably a lot like you are, about, okay, what's actually is the issue with this. But the more I've got into this and looked at the packet, the more I have concerns with actually how they handled the whole thing, from bringing her in to the disposition and pay it back plus $50, and we're going on. I mean, it almost makes it seem like there was I don't want to say a deferred or something, but it's just very strange in how the paperwork is lined out here.
That's what I found too. I actually called them, and that's what they told me. Everything was handled strange, and they couldn't answer as to why.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion on this?
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the waiver.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Other questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification.
Commissioner Hester?
We're asking for a waiver for a jailer's license.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
Correct. Other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. Thank you for coming. Sheriff Coker, I'll see you at home.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for last week.
Mr. Beecham.
Commissioners, next for your consideration is a waiver submitted by the Harris County Constable's Office, Precinct 4, for Kobe Romero, submitted by Constable Herman for a Class B theft conviction from 2010 for your consideration.
Okay, Constable Herman and Mr. Romero. Constable, if you would, just go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead.
Certainly. My name is Mark Herman. I am the Precinct 4 Constable in Harris County. As many of you know, we are the largest constable agency in the United States. First 6 months of this year, we've added 42 new peace officer positions. We look to topple the 500 employee mark by the end of this year. I am here today on behalf of this young man, Kobe Romero, who is wanting to get in a police academy. He was involved in a shoplifting case back in 2009 when he was 17 years old. He was caught. I've extensively read the report from the PD. He cooperated, admitted he did it. He took deferred adjudication, 6 months probation, which he successfully completed everything. And since that time, he has consistently held a job down, and I have watched him since this time, because his father is employed with me, and I've seen him around different functions, and he is in good standing. And, I would ask the commission to please consider the waiver for this young man. It's been 8 years into his, since the incident occurred, and I see potential in this young man.
Okay, so this is a B waiver, right?
Yes, sir, Class
And
B.
we're 8 years in. We're 8 years in.
Yes, sir, 8 years in, yes, sir.
Okay.
There's only two left technically.
Yeah. So, thank you for that, and Colby, we'd just like to hear from you, I think. Talk about, specifically about the incident and then what you've done since.
Okay, so I was with my brother at the time, and he had a new handheld gaming console, so there were some things that he had to get for the said console. And when we got there, I had no intention of doing anything. I thought we were picking up items, and then going back home so he can play. He had a different idea that he was going to shoplift, and because it's my older brother, and I was taught to respect and have him be the leader, I should have stopped him, and I didn't, and I paid for it.
Okay. Commissioners' questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hester.
Colby, when I'm looking at this, your brother was roughly 22 at the time? 23, somewhere around there?
22,
22? And you were 17?
yes.
Okay. And we're roughly $120 or something of used equipment?
I think it was 50 of new
And that was,
equipment.
Okay.
can you tell us what you've done since that time?
As in specifically,
Just generally in life, what have you done since that time?
I graduated high school, went to college, up until recently when I've landed a relatively nice job with a career path as in the fire protection. Right now I install, maintain, inspect fire protection devices, fire alarm panels, deluge systems, sprinkler systems, things to help save people in the event of a fire. The career path forward for them would be a fire protection engineer, which would be designing the said panels and deluge systems and sprinkler systems. And now we're here.
Okay, thank you.
Colby, whenever the officers came to take the report, how did you respond to that when they asked you? What had happened?
Told them the truth.
Told them the truth? Okay. That's what I was asking. I mean, it's what point I wanted to get at. And so you paid back the restitution and did that and did a deferred adjudication. When you were told about the deferred adjudication, what was your perception of how that was gonna play out in the long run? I mean, what, did you think it was just gonna go away on a,
Well, from my understanding, from the judge, was complete probation, pay the restitution. At the end of the probation, if nothing was happened, I would be able to submit for the charge to be closed or expunged. Talked to a lawyer. Lawyer asked for $2,000 that I didn't have, so I couldn't expunge it from my record.
okay. All right, thank you. I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else? Motion?
Now,
Yes, go
I
ahead,
have a
Chief.
question. I think the concern becomes is that even though it was several years ago, you were a follower.
Yes.
You're going to go into a situation where you're going to be the least senior person in the organization. You could potentially see a police officer or a jailer or someone else do something wrong.
Yes, potentially.
Speak to whether you have the courage to stand up and do the right thing. Because you're going to be in that same situation where you could be asked by someone with 25 years, 30 years of experience to do something that maybe isn't right. So speak to us a little bit about that, please.
Well, it was a mistake to do the action, but it was a blessing to be caught in doing the action. I have a better understanding of the law, better respect for the law, and for anyone who decides to break the law, no matter how small or big, I will stand up and say something.
Other questions? A motion, please.
I'll make the motion that we accept the waiver.
I'll second that.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Constable, for coming.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Beecham.
Commissioners, next is a waiver submitted by the Carrollton Police Department on behalf of Jovan Villegas. Chief Redden has submitted it for a Class B reckless driving disposition from 2010 for your submission.
Okay, Chief Redden and Mr. Villegas. Chief, introduce yourself and please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Rex Redden, the Chief of Police from Carrollton Police Department, and I have with me Mr. Jovan Villegas. We're here today to talk about Mr. Villegas's incident that occurred when he was a young man growing up in Andrews, Texas, which some of you may not know where that is. It's northwest of Midland, small town. Being a small town boy myself, I can tell you often small town young men find strange ways to entertain themselves. At the tender age of 17, Mr. Villegas found himself charged with reckless driving for doing donuts in the parking lot of the local Taco Villa, where ironically he was employed at the time. No property was damaged and no one was injured during the incident. The matter was adjudicated in April of 2010 before the county court in Andrews County, where he received a special punishment range by the magistrate, which, confusing to us, is that he has no criminal history. However, when you run his fingerprints, it does come up as having the arrest. You can see on the paperwork where the judge has marked out Class B misdemeanor and checked special punishment range. The punishment for this heinous violation was $200 fine and a $337 in court cost with no jail time or no probation. 3 months later, Mr. Villegas was serving in the U.S. Army as a combat medic. He has a decorated career, receiving several honors to include the U.S. Army Best Medic recognition in 2012. After 4 years of service, Mr. Villegas was discharged honorably in 2014. He is now married and wishes to fulfill his desire to become a police officer. He has passed all of our entrance requirements, examinations, and reviews. He has passed all entry testing established by the Commission with the exception of this incident. Mr. Villegas has matured significantly since that incident, and I feel strongly he will represent our profession honorably. It has been over 5 years from the final disposition of the criminal charges against him. He's now 25 years old, has not had any further incidents, and I believe that he has learned a valuable lesson about how what seems to be an innocent teenage behavior can have lasting effects on one's future. Based upon his most recent conduct, the exemplary service to our country, and the good moral conduct I believe he possesses, I'm respectfully requesting the Commission to authorize a waiver for Mr. Villegas to attend a basic law enforcement academy and upon successful conclusion be licensed as a peace officer in the state of Texas for the city of Carrollton. Your consideration is respectfully requested.
Thank you very much, Chief. Mr. Villegas. I think, first of all, thank you for your service is in order, and we just simply want to hear from you.
Good morning. I really appreciate this opportunity and the time you've taken out of your time of day. I'm Jovan Villegas. Just a little bit about the incident. I got off of work. I was about 17 years old. I thought it'd be fun to just do some donuts in the parking lot when I got off of work. I did 2 donuts and realized the cops were, they were across the street. They pulled me over. It was actually my teacher that pulled me over. He was also my criminal justice teacher in high school. Pulled me out, asked me what I was doing, told me he was going to call my parents. In the midst of doing that, he detained me and said he was going to teach me a lesson. Took me up to the police station. Didn't take a picture of me, fingerprinted me. The judge was actually there. It was Judge Black that was there. And he pretty much looked at me. He knew me. He said, why are you up here? I told him what I did, the charge. He said, I'm not going to charge you with a misdemeanor for reckless driving, but I want you to pay this ticket. You need to learn your lesson. At the time, of course, I was scared. He knew that I wanted to become a police officer since he knew me. He told me to go and follow my career in the military and then get out. I did not think that this Class B was going to be up against me at any time. According to him, it was supposed to just be a citation, supposed to be marked up. I guess it never got switched over. Since then, I joined the military as a combat medic. I am EMT certified. I did win the Best Medic competition in 2012 for all the best medics that were in the Army. In 2012, I've got my LMT license in massage therapy. I've been a supervisor. I've built a whole skyscraper and supervised it in downtown Dallas, the Lorenzo Hotel. I've been trying to be as responsible as I could be, and I'm sorry that I did that. I do understand that I could have hurt myself, hurt someone's damage, or someone's property, and I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners?
Well, I'm just glad that you weren't doing donuts and Buddy's steak fingers and went through the glass
Yeah.
thing. You're in Andrews, Texas, you
That'd
gotta
have
do
been
that, so. I would move approval of the waiver.
I second.
Have a motion. Have a motion and a second from Commissioner Thomas. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Abstain.
we have one abstention. It passes. And let's just be real honest in this audience. How many of you haven't done a donut?
Guilty.
Congratulations.
Mr. Villegas,
How many got caught doing donuts?
well, first off, the case report is really lacking, but
Yeah.
congratulations to you, and do know that this is for this agency, and it's not anything that you can move around, so.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 8, our discussion of actions on proceedings for revocation, suspension, and other disciplinary actions. Mr. Winter.
On your agenda for default suspensions are officers who failed to respond to the executive director's notice of disciplinary proceedings and consequently have defaulted their right to a contested case hearing. The executive director recommends that the commission enter default orders suspending the licenses of Leroy Benavides, Paul Chandler, Douglas Davidson, Octavio Diaz, Omar Echeverria, Ashley Ellis, Kenneth Jones Jr., Mark Manley, Gilbert Nieto, Jorge Perez, Kristen Taylor, Lance Terry, Jonathan Valencia, Brooke Williamson, Tyler Willis, and Miguel Zuniga Pineda.
Commissioner Hollingsworth.
I move that the commission accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director to enter a default final order as authorized under the provisions of 37 Texas Administrative Code, Section 223.3, as required under the Occupations Code, Chapter 1701, 1701.501, to suspend the licenses of, can I go ahead and do the
They've
start and
been
then end?
read into the record, yeah.
What's read into the record, beginning with Leroy Benavides and ending with Miguel Zuniga Pineda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Winter.
Commissioners, the next individuals negotiated and agreed suspension with the executive director. We now have a settlement to present to you for all of these individuals: Teresa A. Alderson, Michael T. Balderas, Zachary Gordon, and Joseph A. O'Brien. And the executive director recommends that the commission approve these agreed orders suspending their licenses.
Commissioner Hollingsworth.
I move that the commission accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director to enter a final agreed suspension waiver for Teresa Alderson, Michael Balderas, Zachary Gordon, and Joseph O'Brien.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Winter.
Commissioners David A. Alonso and Benjamin Ariola failed to respond to the executive director's notice of initiation of disciplinary proceedings and forfeited the right to a contested case hearing, and consequently, the executive director recommends entry of default orders revoking their licenses.
Commissioner Hollingsworth.
I move that the commission accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director to enter default final order as authorized under the provisions of 37 Texas Administrative Code 223.3 as required under the provisions of 1701.501 to revoke the license of David A. Alonso and Benjamin Ariola.
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Winter.
Commissioners, the next individuals were issued peace officer and/or jailer or telecommunicator licenses in error. Subsequent to these individuals receiving their credentials, the executive director came into possession of information demonstrating that they were not entitled to get those licenses in the first place, and consequently, the executive director initiated cancellation proceedings. These individuals all failed to respond to the notice of cancellation and thus forfeited the right to a contested case hearing on the issue of the cancellation. The executive director recommends entry of default cancellation orders for these individuals: Heriberto Barona, Manuel Cervantes Jr., Marisol Garcia, David Ramos, and Lindsay Siller.
Okay, Commissioner Hollingsworth.
Move that the commission accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director to enter a final default cancellation order to cancel the licenses of Heriberto Barona, Manuel Cervantes Jr., Marisol Garcia, David Ramos, and Lindsay Siller.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Winter.
Commissioners, the next individuals all also engaged in settlement negotiations with the executive director, and there are proposals for agreed suspensions of these individuals, which the executive director recommends that the commission approve. And those individuals are Holmes Canovas, Colin Carlisle, Jennifer De La Cerda, Crystal DeWeese, Nathan Hampton, Jermel Lewis, Frank Say, and Eric Wise.
Commissioner Hollingsworth.
I move that the commission accept and adopt the recommendations of the executive director to enter a final agreed suspension order for Holmes Canovas, Colin Carlisle, Jennifer De La Cerda, Crystal DeWeese, Nathan Hampton, Jermel Lewis, Frank Say, and Eric Wise.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Winter.
Commissioners, the remaining disciplinary matters on your agenda are for your information only. Listed here are officers who received statutory suspensions. Those are individuals who received deferred adjudication for felony offenses, which result in summary suspensions of their peace officer licenses, peace officer and jailer telecommunicator licenses without a contested case hearing. Also listed are statutory revocations for officers who receive felony convictions. Underneath those individuals who are listed for your information are the permanent surrenders, who are individuals who agreed to voluntarily surrender their peace officer and jailer licenses in conjunction with criminal prosecutions. And then finally, you have listed term surrenders, who are individuals who surrendered for a time period, a specified time period, as opposed to permanently, and then reprimands for administrative violations, which is principally for failure to report an arrest.
Okay, thank you. We will move to agenda item number 9, which is receive public comment on any topic without action. I don't have anybody signed up to speak. Is there anybody who'd like to address the commission? Yes, sir. Approach the podium. Just introduce yourself. You've got 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. I'm Deputy Tim Barlow with the Bexar County Fire Marshal's Office. I'm also on the Texas Dare Officers Association State Dare Board, and I've got 2 fun announcements. First off, Dare is still in 52 countries throughout the world, and last year in Atlanta, Georgia, at the International Conference, the International Dare Officer of the Year came out of Texas. I don't know if anybody knew that, but Officer Olga Keese from the Pecos Police Department won the International Dare Officer of the Year for her work with not only the Pecos School District, but also helping the children of a DARE program in Mexico. So she, I'm very proud of her for that. Also this year, next month in July 11th through the 13th up in Grapevine, the state of Texas is hosting the International DARE Conference. So we will have officers from all over the world. Last year we had 500 officers come into Atlanta, and we had them from Bahrain, I think Brazil, Mexico, Canada, plus on top of. So we're still pretty active. We're still out there. We're still waiting to I haven't got the final numbers of how many officers, but we're guesstimating 500 officers from all over the United States and the world that will be coming into Texas next month.
Wow, that's great.
So we'll be hosting all that. So I don't know who the International Dare Officer of the Year is yet. They haven't announced that, but last year, last year we came out of Texas, so we wanted to make sure that got known.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Good job with the DARE program, by the way. Okay, agenda item number 10. At 11:30, we'll be going into executive session. For those of you who don't want to wait around for the surprise at the end, we don't anticipate taking any action when we come back into session other than just adjourning. So thank you, everybody, for coming today. Appreciate it. If you would, at 11:30, be back in for executive session.